Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast, presented by the awesome, the illustrious, the wonderful Queen Anne Beer Hall. What, you like that, Archie?
Yeah, no, you brought out the adjectives. I appreciate that.
I'm just gonna keep hanging with. I'm pretty sure it was Gregory's thing of, what other place you gonna go to where you can watch the game, have the fun atmosphere while you're watching the hockey game, but you're also gonna be able to see both babies and dogs. Like, to me, that is like the perfect place. I'm pretty sure that's what heaven looks like, is just Queen Anne Beer Hall. And you of course get it under you there. You get to point out them and everything. I get to point out that it's 1, 2, 3, RJ, the start of the date today. It's pretty nice.
Hey,
1, 2,
hooray.
3. Yeah. Everybody be ready. End of the year, it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Start preparing now. You have been warned. All right. Because of, I casually bring up the ridiculousness around the date there because, as we all know, 2023 is the year of the Kraken. And before we talk about the idea of Bo Horvat maybe joining the Seattle Kraken, RJ, before we talk about the changes in Vancouver right before we have to play them, and before we hear your amazing reporting from the Skills Showcase, I want to kick off today's podcast talking about how the year of the Kraken has been going so far, because, RJ, it's been going pretty darn well so far for the old Seattle Kraken. And by old, I mean year and a half old Seattle Kraken. They are 9-2-1 so far this calendar year, which is a fantastic record. That's 19 of 24 possible points. And I know a lot of that was done on the road, and we all know about their successes on the road. But, I mean, a lot of that was also done. We're talking about, it's the 23rd day here of January, and they've played 12 games. Like, that's a lot of games in a short amount of time for them to be able to keep up that pace.
Definitely. I mean, this was a very tough stretch looking at it before they were about to embark on this. And we figured this stretch might be the Kraken's undoing this season. And it has been the complete opposite. I mean, it's kind of catapulted them to the top of the Pacific Division, if you look by points percentage. And you got to put that little caveat there. But still, this has been an excellent stretch for them. They've gotten into that rhythm. And yeah, they've kind of had some statement wins as well, finally getting that recognition around the league.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? We don't even have to, qualify it with the points percentage thing, because for a whole 24 hours, RJ, we were atop the division. We were number one in the Pacific, and it was glorious. What an amazing accomplishment for the Seattle Kraken after the inaugural season they had last year. And I mean, we all remember that. We did not think that we would be there just a year later. And so I really, want to applaud the team for the effort that they've had this season, all the off-season additions that they made, all of it. Like, I think we're far enough into the season where we can once again kind of acknowledge and appreciate everything that everybody's been doing here for the Kraken. But this last week in particular, RJ, because it's the last week before they got, we're in the middle of this 3-day off stretch for them right now. That was the time for them to, really kind of fall apart. Like, you held it together. You all, you toughed it out during that really long road trip. You set the record, the NHL record for the wins on that road trip. You've done all this good work. Nobody would have faulted this team for essentially in the last week going 0-4. You know what I mean? Like that, right. That could have been on the table just because everybody's like, look, you're tired. You have to do a weird home and road back-to-back trip thing that nobody's ever heard of before. You've got to play good teams. You're playing a team that's been to the Stanley Cup Finals the last 3 years. You're playing Connor McDavid. You're playing a red hot New Jersey Devils team, and you're playing the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. And I know this was their worst week of the year so far, but still, for them to walk out of this with that big overtime win over the Devils, to take Colorado to the shootout. And you know what I mean? Like, I still think that that's a big, big deal. And it shows us that this team, yeah, they're deep as far as talent goes, but they're also deep as far as that kind of heart and gutsy effort of, no matter how fatigued mentally and physically they are, they're going to come out and they're going to play tough no matter what.
Always. And we had these burnout concerns, certainly after those back-to-backs, where the Kraken, frankly, just looked tired by that Edmonton game. And we were both thinking to ourselves, well, how are they going to get enough energy back to close out these final two before really getting some time off. And amazingly, they did. I mean, they come back in the next game and they look refreshed, they look re-energized, and you get the win in overtime. And then for that Colorado game, where that's a very difficult Avs team to play against, even as banged up as they are, they play the right way. And that one had a playoff style atmosphere to it. If you are anything less than your best, you're not going to take that game to overtime, take it to a shootout, which, let's be honest, it's a coin flip. It's a crapshoot. I think of that game as a tie. And basically you take that Avs team and play them that well. That requires a lot of energy and to kind of dig deep and find that within yourself when I'm sure all the guys are exhausted. I mean, we'll get to the skills showcase stuff later, but like that, certainly the impression I had before the skills showcase, man, a lot of the guys were exhausted. I'm like, as fun as this event is going to be, like, let's just get them a day off. Like it's good when it ends.
I was gonna say, maybe not the best scheduling for the skills showcase there. It's at the end of this brutal stretch where they played 12 games in 21 days. But yeah, it was a lot of fun based on what I saw. Can't wait to hear about it in a little bit here. One of the things from this last week though that I want to talk about, and we talked about it in the post game from that Colorado game, was Philip Grubauer. And I do feel like we're kind of, we don't have to totally go down the rabbit hole again, but I do feel like we're in that spot where, again, it's just like, all right, he looked good again, but, for whatever reason, they can't actually get the W for him. I mean, I don't know what it's got to take at this point, RJ, for him to get the W's. After this, as of things standing right now today, January 23rd, him and Martin Jones essentially have the exact same save percentage. 894 for Martin Jones, 893 for Philip Grubauer. I mean, that's virtually exactly the same. Grubauer's got the better quality start percentage, but again, we're talking about one goalie being 22-6-3 and the other being 4-8-2. I don't get it.
I know it boggles the mind. It really does. I mean, we talked about those goal support figures earlier in the season, and since then, Jones has only gotten higher and Grubauer has only gotten lower. So it's amazing. And you look at these last two games at home. Yeah, Grubauer, 931 save percentage, 963 save percentage, 0 wins out of that.
Yeah, like that's really good. He is playing very good hockey, and it's just. It's not coming together for him, unfortunately, in the record column. And, to some people, that is the thing that matters, right? And we joke about Hackstall, all about the W's, but I still see a lot of stuff on social media about Philip Grubauer, like, being so much worse than Martin Jones, all this stuff. And I'm like, but he's not. He's not.
I know. I'm looking back at this and I'm just like, is he playing too well? I'm looking at the games at home.
Is he playing too well? This is where we're at, trying to solve this mystery.
I look at it and I see, like this Colorado where he stops 26-27, loss. Tampa where he stops 27-29, loss. Even that Calgary game, he stops 41 of 44 shots, loss. And then the Winnipeg game, that's his last home win, which by the way is over a month ago. His last win at Climate Pledge Arena, which he deserves way better than that.
Yeah.
882 save percentage, stops 15-17. It's a win.
Okay, so
I don't know.
So what we're saying
like the lose the face-off battle?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like the lose the face-off battle. Philip Grubauer needs to play worse, and then that will inspire the team to win in front of him, is the only conclusion we can draw from the data, as all people with analytic brain, all people in hockey analytics, their heads start spinning as I say that.
I know this is very basic, but I just sorted all of his games this season by save percentage.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm looking at each of the top 6 games by save percentage that he's had this season.
Yes.
All losses.
Oh my gosh. Name me the other goaltender that can do that.
I know. And the bottom 5 in save percentage, all losses, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
It's that sweet spot in the middle where he's got the 5 wins.
All
so
right.
Just play right in that, let's see, between 914 save percentage and 882. Somewhere in there. And you're golden.
So he needs to play around league average, is what we're saying. He can't be better, He can't be worse. He needs to be exactly league average to get the wins.
apparently.
Wonderful. Well, we've solved it, everybody. We can expect Philip Grubauer and the team to win a bunch of games from here on out. You're welcome.
I'll just pass that info along to him tomorrow at practice. I'm
Yeah.
sure he'll be thrilled to hear that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that you'll make his day, definitely. All right, so we talked about in that the idea of the face-off thing and kind of the ongoing joke that we've had about, or at least I've had about, hey, the Kraken win when they lose the face-off battle. The games they finally win the face-off battle, they tend to lose, and I've had a lot of fun with that, and I have been coming around trying to drop, like, all right, it's been great and all, but come playoff time, maybe we should just try to win some face-offs here. And because, I haven't been the only person to notice the Kraken's face-off woes. There's been some pretty big names out there in the hockey world. One, Elliot Friedman, comes to mind, especially. I mean, we all know, we've all seen the tweets and all the messages that have come out of him, the 32 Thoughts, podcast articles that he writes, all that stuff. And because of really him and that, it seems like the Seattle Kraken have been linked to Bo Horvat, captain of the Vancouver Canucks, very heavily. And like, I don't know, as far like based on what I've seen, it really does stem kind of from Elliot Friedman. Do you think I'm right?
Right. I mean, I've seen a couple other sources be like, yeah, no, I'm hearing the Kraken are in on this, but Friedman was the first, like, 4 or 5 reportings of it. Yeah. He definitely was the one to get started, which tells me, I mean, he hears something somewhere from someone, and he kind of keeps hammering away at it. But yeah, I haven't seen. I mean, basically, he's driven most of it, is what I'd say.
Yeah, he's driven a lot of it, but it has gotten to the point where it's starting to feel like, even if a deal doesn't happen, and we'll get into the specifics of all this a little bit more here in just a second, but even if it doesn't feel like it happens, or if it doesn't happen, it feels like it's gotten to the point where, like, okay, there's too much smoke here not to be something. Right? Like there is definitely something going on here. And because of that, we thought we'd go ahead and talk about it here, because it's something that needs to be talked about. Everybody's talking about it. We've seen it thrown around on Twitter, on the Discord a lot. So we're going to go ahead and talk about it. What I will say, though, is we talk tomorrow. We're releasing Release the Fans, which is our Patreon podcast. It's open to everybody, but it's where we select a Terror of the Deep tier Patreon member, patron of ours, and we interview them. And one of the things that we do towards the end, after we've talked with them about their fandom, is they ask us questions about the team. And this week, or this month I should say, we did Gary M, and his question to us was about what we see like kind of as the Kraken's future 3 to 4 years out, and what things look like from like contract standpoints and all of that. And we have a good time talking about that, so I don't want to like spoil too much from that and everything, because I want everybody to give it a listen. We had a really good conversation with Gary, but we did talk about like the idea of if Bo Horvat's there, what that looks like, because we bring him in. If you're trading for him, he's not just going to be a rental for us this year. We would extend him most likely. And so what does that look like for the future of the Kraken? And if they don't do that, what other moves might they do? We talk about all that tomorrow. It'll be released tomorrow. You can all go and listen to that for some more in-depth stuff. Today, we'll just focus on the Bo Horvat aspects of it. But RJ, I mean, let's just start at the beginning. If you think the Kraken are for real on Bo Horvat, what do you think it's going to take to get him?
It's tough because there are going to be other teams involved as well. That are interested. I mean, I don't think it's going to be particularly cheap. I think it's going to cost somewhere in the range of potentially one of the Kraken's prospects that they've drafted recently, someone who's looking promising, whether that's a Ryan Winterton, a Jagger Firkus, a Yanni Newman, basically someone in that second or successful 3rd round range. And then plus, I think you're looking at another high draft pick this year, maybe a 2nd rounder. And I know the Canucks would certainly be asking for a 1st rounder in this year's draft. If you ask, kind of Canucks fan circles, they all want Shane Wright. I think we can just get that out of the way. That's not going to happen.
Definitely not happening.
I think he's untouchable there. But, you look at comparable trade returns, even as a pure rental, a 1st round pick is usually involved in a deal like this, unless some other big prospect is going the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think, you'd be kissing goodbye to your first rounder this year, which, hey, because the Kraken are doing so well, looks like, playoffs are becoming more and more kind of almost inevitable. That first round pick, it's not going to be high. Right. Already I was trying to, let everybody know, yeah, we've been blessed these last couple of years with these high picks. Obviously you get fantastic prospects like Matty Beniers, Shane Wright. But one of the things that, becomes harder with the later picks, it isn't that you're necessarily getting worse players. It's that you're not going to see those players for a while. Right. Let's say this Kraken pick turns into pick 20, 19, 18, something like that. That's a player that you're not seeing for at least 2 years. Right after you draft them. Yep. And so, as far as that first round pick, it's not going to be something that's going to be giving you immediate returns. So I want to throw that out there just because that's not something the Kraken have been in position to experience yet. So for newer fans, just that's generally how it goes. Prospects picked later on in the first round. They don't come to the NHL right away. They take several years usually to make it. So, but yes, I agree. First round pick, my guess is, you're looking at first round pick, maybe one of the Kraken's second round picks this year, and then maybe even a second round pick next year. Particularly if Vancouver is going to be like, hey, you can start working on it. You can start talking with these people about an extension before we make this deal. Like that would increase the price of that. And then, as far as picks go, as far as prospects go, the Kraken, they don't have a ton of prospects, but they do have some big time, names that could be included in a potential deal like this. I won't go too much into it because again, we talk about this a little bit in the conversation with Gary on Release the Fans that'll come out tomorrow. But you do think of guys like a Ryan Winterton, and at some point, if you're talking about a Bo Horvat being around, plus Shane Wright, plus Matty Beniers, you could only have so many centers, right? And you don't want to bury a Ryan Winterton on the fourth line. So maybe that becomes, an expendable option for you to try to lower the actual draft capital itself that you'd be giving away. I don't know. All right, so that's kind of vaguely where we're thinking the return would have to be for a Bo Horvat. Now let's talk about the idea of, should they do it? Should the Seattle Kraken even be considering this? Bo Horvat is certainly having a fantastic season this year in a contract year. Who would have thought? He's got right? I know it's crazy to think about. He's got 30 goals so far this season in only 46 games, 49 points. He's a really good face-off player. Like that's been a pretty consistent thing with him throughout his career. He's been above 55% almost every year now for the last 5 seasons. He's been a good goal scorer. Obviously this year he's scoring at a really nice clip, but he scored 31 goals last season. He's been up around 27, 19 and 56 a couple of years ago in that shortened COVID year. So he scores goals, he wins face-offs. On its surface, RJ, that seems like somebody the Kraken should definitely be interested in.
Right, and he does a lot of things that I think the Kraken could use, that really any team could use. You'd always love to have a Bo Horvat on your team. The face-offs part is big, especially in the playoffs. You want someone who you can send out there for a big face-off. In the regular season, doesn't matter as much, but especially as you're playing that matchup game, then it becomes really valuable. He's also, can be defensively responsible too. He got some Selke votes last year, for the first time in his career. You can never have too many players who can put the puck in the net. The Colorado Avalanche in their cup run showed that last year, that if you just have this, ungodly amount of players who can score goals for you, that can take you a long way. Kraken aren't necessarily near that Avs level from last year, but they've had, maybe the deepest scoring in the NHL this season. And just to add someone else on top of that starts to feel even more unfair.
It does. And, I'm going to, I don't know that we didn't talk about this before, RJ, but I'm going to kind of make a pitch as to why, should this happen or whatever, Kraken fans should be excited, or maybe even why it should happen here. Feel free to disagree with me. You could totally play the other side if you want here.
Go for it.
But one of the things that I look at with him that I think that, bringing him in, having to extend him might not be a bad idea for the Kraken, is because I feel like he's one of these types of players that, one, is going to age well. He's 27 right now, so you're talking about bringing him in. He'll be 28 next year. You're probably giving him a 7 or 8 year extension, so you're looking at him being a player that you're going to have into his mid 30s. But because of that two-way solid play that he has, because he can be winning faceoffs for you, I feel like those players tend to age a little better later on in his career. He drops down the lineup for sure, but he can be that kind of steady, presence for you winning faceoffs and in key moments, whatever. I think of like the Penguins have always kind of had somebody in their bottom six like that, that can always, they can throw out there. Just Jeff Carter right now. In the past, it's been other guys, where they just kind of rely on them to, hey, you know what? While our star players are resting, just make sure nothing bad happens out there for us. You know what I mean? And they're capable of doing that. But the other thing that I look at with him that really gets me excited, it's actually two things. One is that he's a special teams player. This season, we're looking at, he's got the 30 goals. 11 have been on the power play, so he can help out the Kraken power play, which we know desperately needs help. And he's got 2 shorthanded goals, and he scores a lot of shorthanded goals. He's good for at least 1 or 2 a year. Looking on his history here, so he's a really good player on the penalty kill as well. And I know the Kraken seem to have more options at forward there, but you can never have too many guys that are so solid defensively that you can trust them in the most key moments. And that's what that kind of tells me there, is that he's a good player. He's out there. He kills a lot of penalties for Vancouver, and he can even turn some around into some offensive chances. 2, he doesn't take penalties. This is a guy who's a two-way center, and he doesn't take penalties. He's only got 12 penalty minutes this year. Last year, he had a career high in 40. Like, only 40. That's not like a very high number, considering he was playing 20 minutes a night for Vancouver, and they were putting him in some tough situations as far as what he had to do defensively and stuff. Like, I think that's a big key for him, and then the fact that he draws a lot of penalties. He's drawn 26 this year. He's got a good differential as far as creating more opportunities for you than giving up opportunities. But the thing that I'm most impressed by when I go to his Money Puck page here, RJ, is the heat map of where he likes to shoot and score from, RJ. Because you know where it is? It's right in front of the net. It's just red. It's just red hot right there in the lower slot. It's an area that I feel like the Kraken don't do a good enough job of attacking. It's a very sustainable place that if you attack from there, you're going to score. And it's something that, I talked about last week, right, with the Kraken, them all having a really high shooting percentage and kind of living off of that a little bit. Like, that's the place where you can have a high shooting percentage and it's sustainable, because it's the best place on the ice to score is in that low slot and net front. And that's exactly where Bo Horvat scores from and where he wants to go. And that's where I feel like, again, we're talking about someone you can add to the power play or add in key moments out there for the Kraken to be a big net front presence. I feel like he'd really benefit them.
Yeah, and you make a compelling argument, you make a moving argument, and I will give you that I think a Bo Horvat trade would be the most fun of all possibilities. And I would be, were it to happen, I would be excited, and I think Kraken fans should be excited as well. As you mentioned, he fits in with a lot of the things the team needs, and even though they have this incredible amount of forward depth, he kind of plugs into some areas, as you mentioned, with that net front scoring, with the special teams that they can get better at. I understand the link there and the connection there of why he would make sense to bring in a trade. I agree with you. His game is going to age well. And off the ice, he fits in character-wise, too. Yeah. We know the type of players that Ron Francis likes to target. And so as soon as I saw that name linked to the Kraken, I'm like, yeah, this seems like a Ron Francis type of player to bring in and to help you with a playoff run. Mm-hmm. That said,
I was going to say, I sense a butt coming here.
Oh, yes, and it's coming right here. There are trade-offs. Always in the salary cap world, whenever you bring someone in, especially a player like Bo Horvat, who I think, as Elliot Friedman says, if you're Seattle and you're doing this to keep him. You're not doing this as a rental.
Absolutely.
Because I think as a rental, it would be really unwise, because you're only getting, kind of the half season of him. Are you winning the Stanley Cup this year? As great as it would be, and as much of a chance I think they have, you can't count on that.
Right.
So you're doing this to keep him. You're doing this as a long-term type of deal. You'd like to get him re-signed. When you do that, you are facing some trade-offs as far as what you're able to do elsewhere on your roster. And so I kind of have 2 warnings here for, Kraken fans, Kraken management, basically 2 warnings about this trade. The first one is the Kraken's competitive window. Because by making this trade, you are trying to bump that up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand with the success they're having this season. I mean, why wouldn't you want to reward this team and try and get as much as you can this season? Because it's such a crucial year for the Kraken and really cementing their status in kind of Seattle sports. And hey, look, this team is good. This is not last year's Kraken. We're going to make a run. And you want to kind of catch that lightning in the bottle because this is a special team. We've seen what they've been able to do, and you want to help them out with that.
Right.
But I think you are sacrificing things later down the line. Bo Horvat, 27 years old. He fits in with the window of some of their players, like, an Andre Burakovsky, who they recently brought in, some of their older forwards, but he doesn't completely fit in with that Matty Beniers, Shane Wright window, Beniers being 20, Wright being 18. He's still a ways off from that. And beyond that, you are going to be subtracting from your prospect pool, which is already quite thin just by virtue of the fact that you've only had 2 draft classes. Mm-hmm. They've drafted very impressively in that time. But I think you really have to contend with the idea that, hey, if I'm the Canucks, I'm really insisting on a Jagger Firkus, a Ty Nelson, or a Riker Evans as the prospect involved in this deal. If I think Shane Wright's untouchable, but those second tier prospects, I think that's really going to be who they're targeting. And, do you want to see a Jagger Firkus or a Ty Nelson potentially have that kind of success for a division rival when you're in your real window? So that's the first warning. And I don't know that I would jump at this right away. I think you want to really see where this team is at in their real competitive window before you decide what long-term ad you're going to make. Because I think Eddie Bo Horvat deal, it's going to be a longer-term deal. Yeah. And so you've decided the big piece that you're adding.
Yeah.
And the second warning is about the defense, the D-core, basically, the defenseman. Because if you bring in Bo Horvat at the trade deadline this year and you extend him, I hope you like your blue line, because it is not going to get better this year. And it is not going to get better next year. Looking at the numbers, there is no room. If you're making this Bo Horvat trade at the deadline, maybe you can add an extra asset, get a depth defenseman just in case some injury happens, but it's not going to make your blue line any better. I don't think they're in position to get a Bo Horvat and a John Klingberg. I think we're agreed on that. Yeah. If you make this move, this is your big deal. And then next season, looking at the cap friendly, I've done the whole armchair GM thing and mapping it out. So assuming a Bo Horvat contract extension is something in the 8 by 8.25 range. That's what Frank Saravalli says is kind of the consensus from talking to people around the league. And I talked to you ahead of time. We kind of agree on these contract numbers as far as what it would look like.
Yep.
And then you look at re-signing Vince Dunn for around the amount we talked about on the Release the Fans. So you can check that out tomorrow. We kind of agree on what that extension might look like. And then I'll go with re-signing Will Borgen as well. Just a 1 year, $1.5 million deal. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
And you look at where that leaves you as far as the roster, because then you've got the 12 forwards, you've got the 6 defensemen, and you've got the 3 scratches, and you've got your 2 goalies in Grubauer and Drieger. Mm-hmm. You have about negative $500,000 in cap space. So that's some money you still have to clear. There's no room to add another defenseman at that point. Right. There's just no room. That's how it is. So the blue line is going to be what it's going to be. It's going to be Dunn Larson, Alexiak Schultz, and Will Borgen, and then Susie will be gone. So maybe a Riker Evans or so. Like that, I put Riker Evans into that spot. Yeah. That's what your blue line looks like. So that has to be enough. And I just think when the Kraken have struggled this season, it's been because the defense has had issues. Mm-hmm. The forwards have always looked good. But I think that's been where the Kraken's problem is. So you have to be comfortable with that going into next season. And I just don't know that I am. And on top of that, this scenario means also you're not re-signing Daniel Sprong. You're letting him walk. You're not re-signing Ryan Donato. You're letting him walk. Carson Soucy, he's gone. And you're also not doing an extension for Martin Jones because your goaltending tandem is Philip Grubauer and Chris Drieger. Now, I know you mentioned you've talked to me kind of behind the scenes here, your solution to this, and I'll let you pull that out of the bag if you want to respond here. But those are my 2 warnings about this deal, and that's why it would give me enough pause to maybe not do this if I were Ron Francis. But if he does it, I'll still be excited.
Yeah, I would still be excited too, because the bottom line is, yeah, you're looking at that situation next year, but like long term, there's money that would be coming off the books, because after that next season, you've got Wenberg going, you've got Eberle going, and yeah, that money probably goes to a Matty Beniers extension at that point. But you know, they're going. Yanni only has 1 year past that. You start then looking at, you know, as Adam Larson ages out, Justin Schultz only has 1 year at $3 million after that. So, you know, you'd have that money freed up. There is money there. I think there is stuff you could do as far as goaltending's concerned. You know, you could always trade Chris Drieger potentially, and then have a cheaper backup option in net. There, I do have what some would probably consider an extreme option in net involving Philip Grubauer, but I mean, I talk about it on the Release the Fans, but I don't think it's really that extreme. I think it's probably what's going to happen, and I think it's probably the smart thing. But I'll talk about it maybe next week. We've done a good job talking about how good he's been. I don't want to ruin it. And then I appreciate you giving me my moment though. I very much understand where you're coming from the money standpoint. I do think that the concerns on the blue line is the more legitimate concern of the two that you brought up. And I think that is something that would be more worrisome long term. I don't know about the competitive window thing, because as far as I'm concerned, with Matty, the way he's already playing, your competitive window with Matty is already now. Shane Wrights is probably 2 years out from now, because he'll need a full season in the NHL to get up to speed, and then you're in your competitive window with him. But like, Matty's ready right now. He's almost a point per game player. He's playing a 200-foot game. He's fantastic. I don't think you got to worry about that. So as far as bringing in another person who's going to be the same age as Burakovsky and Bjorkstrand and kind of right in there with those guys, I don't really have a problem with it. I think that's a fine competitive window. What you do is then you've got Matty in his young 20s, Shane around 21, them at 30-something. You play through the end of their deals come 2026 or whatever. You recycle all those guys for guys that are the same age as Matty in that and Shane in that situation, and boom, you've got that kind of second opening. Like that's what having guys like Matty and Shane gives you, is it gives you multiple windows, because they're so young and they're so good so young. Is you'd have multiple windows. So I think you'd have a window with Bjorkstrand, Burakovsky, Bo Horvat while he's still, you know, really young and a good competitor for you. And that second window, Bo Horvat's more of that bottom six veteran kind of guy. And you've refreshed all the guys around them, the Bjorkstrands, the Burakovskys, with guys that are more there, while Matty and Shane are probably only, you know, you're looking at Matty being 28 at that point, like, you know what I mean? Very much still capable of giving it a good go. So I don't know that the competitive window aspect is too much of a concern. It's a big contract, and for the next year or two, that's a problem. But as the cap keeps going up, I don't know. I think that yes, the more concern is you're going to be paying Matty, you're going to be paying Shane at some point. It'll take a little while to pay Shane, but you'll be paying him at some point. Do you want to have your three biggest contracts all be forwards? Is the question you have to ask yourself. And I think, that it's possible. We're seeing it this year. I mean, we just talked about the goaltending. Neither Kraken goaltender's got a save percentage above 900. Is that on them, or is that on the defense, right? Like, you can have that conversation and say, well, the defense needs to be better. But at the same time, also, we just talked about this team being 9-2-1 this year with this blue line. So maybe the blue line is good enough. I don't know.
Yeah, it comes down to what kind of roster construction you want. And that's always a difficult question to answer in every team's circumstance. But yeah, I mean, basically you kind of have to decide, are you going forward heavy, or are you going defense heavy? But it's just something that you should know. If you're going to bring in Bo Horvat, you're not bringing in a top level blue liner for at least another couple years.
Right. The way the Kraken are constructed, they have the ability to bring in one big piece.
Yep.
And
that's basically where we're
at.
At.
Right. And so it's up to you to decide if you believe Bo Horvat is that one big piece. And I think there's as good an argument for him as maybe anybody why he could be that piece. But I also understand not being like, yeah, let's do it now, right? Like, this might not be the time to do that. Maybe there's other options down the road, including one that last tease, but one that I bring up on the Release the Fans coming out tomorrow. That's, I think, a very intriguing option, and I do think is potentially realistic. So, Yeah, I think that there are some other options there. That being said, just want to put it out there. If like, later this week or in 20 minutes after we finish recording this, RJ, because that's how the Kraken do things, they trade for Bo Horvat, I don't think it would be a disaster. I think that there would be a lot of good things to come from it, and I would be excited as a Kraken fan.
Yeah, no, I would be too, and I think we'd all get on board with it for sure, and it would certainly be fun to cover Bo Horvat, to have him in the room, and just to be able to cover the kind of the aftermath of a trade like that.
Oh, for sure. I can already see us having hour-long discussions on videos in next August about who's going to be captain of the team, Bo Horvat or Matty Beniers. Be wonderful.
There's only one right answer.
Yanni Gord.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. There you go, everybody. I said it. Congrats. All right, real quick, RJ, before we get to the skills showcase breakdown, because we've been talking about Bo Horvat, he'd be coming from Vancouver, and this is one of the fun things, is like, well, he'd be motivated to win in Seattle because he'd be coming from kind of our regional rival, so to speak, and I got to think that would, him wanting to have success and not be kind of stuck in the endless purgatory that the Canucks find themselves in, which continued very much this week, RJ, as they fired Bruce Boudreau, bring in Rick Tocchet. They're now paying 3 coaches currently. I
don't know if that's the proper order that you mentioned that in. They bring in Rick Tocchet, then fire Bruce Boudreau.
That's basically what happened, yes. But yeah, you gotta love an organization that's paying more people to not coach for the team than they are paying to coach for the team. It's a sign of a healthy culture you've got going on up there. All right, so Vancouver makes the coaching change, and I only bring it up on this podcast, RJ, because we'll get into the messy specifics of it on the Red Glare podcast, which is our Patreon exclusive podcast, later this week. But I bring it up because the Seattle Kraken, that's their next game, is at home against Vancouver. We're still seeking our first win against the Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver not looking so good lately. I was really feeling good about this game upcoming, and now everything's kind of thrown into a blender because you're going to have Rick Tocchet behind the bench with this team. I don't know what they're going to look like. Who knows what kind of headspace those players are going to be in, given how messy this situation is. Like, normally I figure, like, okay, kind of one of those first games in with the coach, they give it their all. They want to show off to the new guy, like, hey, this is what I can do, and win favor. Maybe that's something to be afraid of. But given how messy that whole situation went down, RJ, I can't imagine these players' heads are really going to be that much in the game.
Right. I mean, it's hard to know exactly, because there's always the idea that you want to kind of audition for the new coach and you're kind of re-earning spots. But this situation was just so much of a mess. It's hard to know how they're going to respond. And I think that makes them all the more dangerous. I don't know.
It is possible.
And I mean, we've looked at games where the Kraken have played the Canucks and they were on these, the long, like, losing streaks too. And,
yes.
Like, oh, the Kraken really should win. And that's like the most dangerous ones because they haven't been able to get it done. I don't know. The game still scares me, and especially with the Kraken coming off 3 days without a game.
No.
I know. I didn't want to get into this place, but like, it adds an element of kind of chaos to it that for whatever reason, the matchups with the Canucks has not gone well, but maybe it was Bruce Boudreau the whole time. Maybe Boudreau was just that magic energy that the Kraken could not get past.
That would be, I mean, that would be fantastic now because we never have to deal with it again. But I don't know. I mean, it's on the one hand, it's tough. I'm very conflicted because on the one hand, I feel very good about, like, hey, look, this Kraken team is playing as well as anybody in the NHL so far this season. I rattled off the numbers earlier. We've talked about it. Both goaltenders are right there right now. And this Vancouver team has not been playing well. Like, they're not headed to playoff town, right? They're talking about trading their captain. They're talking about trading their captain potentially to the team, however, a couple dozen miles down the road, so to, right? Like these are not normal conversations to be had around a team. So you got to think that that's affecting them. But at the same time, especially after all the noise of this past week, I could totally see this Vancouver club kind of rallying around the new guy and being like, hey, let's try to show everybody that we're not as dysfunctional up here as they all like to talk about us being. And so I'm kind of happy that we get to play Vancouver now, but I'm also just naturally worried and hesitant given the past we've shared with them.
I know. I know it's never a dull matchup with the Canucks. It always feels like something is going on, for one of these Kraken Canucks games,
Right.
and this will be no different.
Right, and there's another aspect to this too, RJ. This is the first time in 2023, the year of the Kraken, that the Kraken have had to play on a Wednesday.
Ah, okay.
We don't know what kind of team shows up on Wednesdays in the year 2023. Okay, we haven't seen.
We're getting
it
into
yet.
those obscure stats, like games this year on a Wednesday. While it's a full moon. It's like those baseball stats they pull out.
Look, I'm just saying we are undefeated on Thursdays, including giant wins in Toronto, in Boston, big home win over the Devils. We don't know what kind of team shows up on Wednesdays.
All right. Well,
It's
I guess
midweek,
we'll
it's
find
hump
out.
day. I mean, that's a toss up for anybody in any work environment, right? Sometimes you're really hitting stride come Wednesday in your work week. Other times it's like that's the beginning of the decline. We're gonna find out this Wednesday against the Vancouver Canucks. How's that for a pitch? Why doesn't Root bring me in to pitch all these games, man? Get people
I
excited
know
to watch.
that's a storyline you won't hear on Root. Yeah, for better or for worse.
Yeah. So that's something. That's something to. Hey, we get our first Friday game too this week. Just saying.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, but I'm still holding with for this Vancouver game. Got to try to bring that road magic. I'll be wearing my road jersey. I want everybody to wear road gear. Try to bring that road magic. If you're going to the game, it's a home game. Try to wear a road jersey. Be different. Be excited. Try to bring that road energy back to the Seattle Kraken because we all know how well they handle that and the magic that really does exist there.
Dylan, so should I do the same thing? Like most road games, I just like watch right here wearing pajamas and a hoodie. Should I just like wear that to the game and like, hey, no, this is going to help the Kraken win?
Yeah, I would. I would definitely show up wearing pajamas.
We'll see how that goes over.
You couldn't. I mean, people will let you. They'd get it. Just say like, yeah, it was a thing, They're like, all right.
Yeah, that's all you say.
That's of course, that'll be the day, right, that they hold some sort of like weird media lottery, and it's like for the exclusive ability to interview Dave Haxtell. It's like, RJ, you won.
Yeah, the Ron Francis exclusive.
The Ron Francis,
win the lottery.
Yeah. Lywicki, Haxtell triple exclusive interview special. I think we're just describing your nightmares at this point. Is that you show up to work in pajamas? You got to do that.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So we've talked about all that other stuff, RJ. Now we can get into the fun stuff, which was the Seattle Kraken had their skills showcase yesterday. By all accounts, it sounds like it was just as much fun as last season. It sounds like it's always a fun time. It was Team Drieger versus Team Donskoy this year. And so I'm gonna go ahead and hand over all of this podcast to you here. You can fill us in and let us know how it went down.
All right, will do. So it was a really fun event again. So it's the second annual Super Skills Showcase, and just a few things I want to mention off the bat. Great turnout of fans, yet again. Like again, the lines outside were so long to get in because it was first come first served seating. So you just had to go like run in and find your spot. So that created a little chaotic element, but it was fun. Team Donskoy versus Team Drieger, the two players who haven't played yet this season, but they've kind of been around. And I hope this will answer the question for a lot of people as far as like, where is Donskoy? We've even gotten a few like, is he alive? Well, turns out he is alive and well, coaching Team Donskoy in the Skills Challenge. So, and he was there also with his young son, looks to be like a year and a half old, who's on skates out there on the ice, just kind of wobbling around.
Get him started early.
Yep, you got to get them started early. So that was awesome. And before I get started in all the events, I want to give a big thank you to everyone who stopped by for the ECH meetup out by the plant wall before the skills showcase. I know it was not easy to get out there because you got to reserve your seat. Like I realized that was not conducive to a meetup.
Yeah.
And so many people stopped by and they're like, hey, RJ, like great to see you. I just wanted to come by. I've got to run back to my seat or I've got to run and go grab a seat. And I totally understand. But it was good to see all of you there. We had a few that kind of stuck around at the end that just were not worried about getting a good seat at all. They're like, yeah, we'll sit wherever. Thanks for everyone who stopped by. It was great to talk to all of you. So I wanted to mention that. So we go on to Team Donskoy and Team Drieger. there was a player draft. They showed the video of that. I don't know if the Kraken have like put that out on YouTube or anything, but they had a video that Donskoy and Drieger both drafted their teams. And one interesting element to that was Matty Beniers was drafted by Jonas Donskoy, and on the day of, he ended up on Team Drieger. So I heard kind of behind the scenes that there was a trade made between Drieger and Donskoy. And I heard that Driegs was taking it pretty seriously, that he was in GM mode. He was wheeling and dealing, and he was, going for a back-to-back skills showcase victory. And that included some roster moves. So we didn't get the chance to talk to him after the skills showcase, unfortunately. But if I see him around, I'm going to ask him about that trade. I need to do some investigative work here, find out what the compensation was, how that came into being. I know after the skills showcase is done, everyone's probably kind of over it, but I still want to figure this out for myself.
Yeah, no, and I'm just checking the Seattle Kraken's page here on YouTube, and there's nothing there. So maybe we'll get something in a little bit. But
from the Twins, so
yeah.
I have it at least. I can go back through and like do the draft order and who was picked, but I won't do it here. First picks for each team though.
Yeah.
Donskoy selected Eli Tolvanen, no surprise, fellow Finn.
Yeah.
And Drieger selected Jordan Eberle, so fellow Canadian boy. All good there. So after they showed the player draft video, it was time for warm-ups. And warm-ups are always fun because you have the players bringing their kids out. I talked about Jonas Donskoy bringing his son out there. And not just the kid, Jordan Eberle, of course, with his two kids, but not just the kids. Jared McCann brought his dog, Cheddar, out onto the ice. And Cheddar was a big fan favorite right off the bat. Like I caught Cheddar in that video that I took of Donskoy and his son. Like, but okay, yeah, sure, whatever, baby. But Cheddar, look at Cheddar there. Brought Cheddar out for warm-ups, and McCann said actually that he had to kind of bring Cheddar back into the tunnel and everything because he was getting a little scared, a little freaked out by all the people. Yeah, it is a lot. But good to see that. Good to see some dogs on the ice whenever you can get it.
Absolutely. Afra is very excited. She's on the bed here next to me as we record. she's very pumped up about this news. Yeah, you are.
Maybe we could get Afra on that ice one day.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
I bet she'd like it. So you had warm-ups, and so that runs its course, and they've got the intros and everything. Nick Olchek and Allison Lucan were kind of the two hosts for everything, like talking about the different events. And you also had the broadcasters, John Forsland and Everett Fitzhugh, who were also kind of hosts. And so the four of them really did that and kind of walked everyone through things. And then it came time for the events. So we'll start with accuracy shooting. So the players had targets in the net. You got to hit from about the hash marks. It's what you'd expect from an accuracy shooting contest. And it came down to the final two for each team. And it was Daniel Sprong versus Jared McCann. Right. And you're thinking, both these guys, man, they know how to shoot the puck.
Right.
So Daniel Sprong, I think, finished with a time
McCann was the champ last year, right? In this?
Yeah, I think he was. I know Riley Sheahan gave him a good run for his money, but McCann was, I believe, the champ last year. So he's defending his crown. And so Daniel Sprong gets a time of 16.7 seconds. Pretty good, knocking down all the targets. And Jared McCann, it could not have gone worse for him.
Oh, no.
So many shots like right out of the bar, but that weren't where the targets were. And he even got chirped at a certain point by Everett, who was like, hey, you're supposed to hit the targets.
Oh, no.
Like while he's shooting, like that's got to hurt.
Not in front of Cheddar.
I know, not in front of Cheddar. But McCann actually did not get all the targets before they just like kind of rang the buzzer at him at 41.7 seconds.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, and I did... I found a sneaky way to kind of bring it up. You never want to bring that stuff up afterwards. Yeah. But we were talking with McCann, and I was asking him another question. I said, what was the best chirp of the day? And he said he couldn't remember, like a particularly great chirp or whatever that he wanted to share. I said, just the chirp from Fitz about, you got to hit the targets. He's like, oh yeah, no, I heard that one. He said, I went over and I told him like, when growing up, I was told you're supposed to shoot through the net. So I wasn't like thinking, the accuracy of hitting the targets. And man, McCann does have some shots that'll go basically through the net.
Yeah,
it feels like. So that was the accuracy shooting contest. Sprong takes the win there. So next onto the relay race. And it was another close battle.
Hmm.
I believe Team Dreeks took it. But a few little notes from that, and relating to the mini nets, because this is both of our favorite parts of this
Yep,
relay race. So you go
absolutely.
around the cones, you do three saucer passes, into the mini nets over a little barrier, then you stick handle through some stick segments, then you shoot it into the empty net all the way down. But I asked Morgan Geeky afterwards what the best chirp of the day was, and he gave me an answer. So, and he knew right away too, no hesitation. He's like, all right, so the best chirp of the day, like, the relay race, like, remember, the part with the mini nets? I'm like, yeah. So he's like, all right, so it was this Tanev was going up to those mini nets, and as soon as he got there, he said Canner and Ebbs just started yelling at him, saying he should just like lob it, just like lift the puck over, because he didn't have that saucer pass in his tool bag. It's like, that's not something he has in his bag, they claimed. So then, of course, Tanev, hearing that as soon as he steps up, goes 3 for 3 on the saucer passes. 1, 2, 3, right into the mini net, and shows them what's up. Now, there was one other player in this competition who also went 3 for 3 in the mini nets. Care to guess who it was, Dylan?
Adam Larson.
Yes, it was Adam Larson. I knew you'd be proud. I knew you'd be proud of your boy.
Yep. In my favorite competition too. Favorite aspect of all this, the saucer pass. The only thing I could maybe do out there.
Yep, it was perfect, right?
Yep.
So Tanev and Larson, kind of the MVPs of the relay race there. So on to the hardest shot.
Mm-hmm.
And this one probably carries the most weight as far as the one the players really want to win.
It'll help you with the shot too.
Yeah, it will. The weight will help you with the shot.
Now, and I was gonna say, like, let's set this up. Like, who won it last year? Because I remember there was
Geeky won it last year.
But there was lots of controversy
though.
Yes,
with the radar gun, and that it seemed a little bit off, and that the one didn't register and everything. And so there was some controversy around that, and that stuck with the team too. All the players were aware that it was like on a technicality, and like they didn't actually win. And so there was all of this. And so Morgan Geeky.
And then we got Tolvanen coming in, and we've seen what he can do in a game setting. So you got to think that in a skills showcase where you don't have the pressures of, like, defensemen diving at you and whatnot. Yeah. There's going to be a good run for his money there. Morgan Geeky again.
Well, that was the most disappointing part of the hardest shot competition. Ellie Tolvanen did not participate.
What?
I know.
Fire everybody.
I know, because I believe Tolvanen did the relay race part instead. But no, you've got to have him in hardest shot. I don't understand.
So Donskoy drafts his fellow Finn and then doesn't stick him in that. I
don't want to be too critical of Jonas Donskoy here, because I think he doesn't need anything else this season. But I don't understand his roster decisions in drafting and in where he put people.
Okay.
I just don't understand. We were talking about the draft, like, what kind of team is Donskoy building here? Definitely more of a fan of Drieger as GM. But so for the hardest shot competition, you started off actually with a few former players and people in the broadcast crew showing what they could do. You had Dave Tomlinson come out there, have a pretty nice shot. You had Nick Olczyk registering a 95.3.
Whoa, that is impressive.
Yeah, he can rip it. I mean, I knew that from having been on the ice with him for the media clinic and a couple other things.
Right.
But yeah, he can absolutely blast that puck. So 95.3, and he was hitting in the 90 range during warmups and before warmups, sorry, as they were testing out the radar gun. Right. So it wasn't a huge surprise to me. But man, yeah, Nick Olczyk, credit to him.
Good for him. Yeah.
And then JT Brown was supposed to go, but he said off-season hip surgery, probably shouldn't be doing that.
All right.
He tapped Daniel Sprong to go and take the shot for him, and Sprong clocks a 98. So whoa. I'm glad to see we got to see Sprong shooting.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that was on a first attempt too, because the second attempt is always you get
generally better. Yeah.
Yep. So we only saw the Sprong first attempt, just tagging him for JT Brown, because when they first announced the lineups, like, how is it Tolvanen and Sprong not going for this?
Right.
But at least we got to see Sprong.
Yeah.
So you get to the actual hardest shot competition, and Morgan Geeky's got to try and defend his crown. And boy, did he. He was the only one to hit triple digits. His first shot registered just over 100, and his second one hit 104.8.
That is fast. That is very fast.
Yeah. Again, nobody else could even get into triple digits. Jared McCann was second with I believe a 99 point something. But Morgan Geekie ran away with it again. And good to see that because,
Yep.
I know there was some controversy on that last year.
Should quiet
Nobody,
that.
Yeah, nobody can question the win this year. And got some funny questions on that. Yeah, I don't think he cared too much. You know how geeky is. He wasn't gonna be like, yes, this is the most important thing in my life. But he was asked how is he going to prepare for the hardest shot competition next year? Like, how do you start training?
Right.
And he's like, well, I did some chin-ups between the first and second period in the Colorado game yesterday.
I love this guy.
Yep,
I can't believe he didn't say Pizza Hut.
2 chin-ups at intermission. That's how you get good slap shots.
I can't believe he didn't take the opportunity to throw another free sponsorship ad read towards Pizza Hut.
I know. No Pizza Hut mentions at all. He could have brought it up if he wanted to. But yeah, we know that's the fuel, the
Yes.
barbecue chicken pizza from Pizza Hut. So just do that. Eat lots of Pizza Hut and do some chin-ups at intermission. And yeah, you'll be like Morgan Geekie.
There we go. Love that guy so much. I want to see him drop that in a game because I don't think we've seen him really go for the slapper this season.
No, not really. He needs to use it more in games. He did at the start of last season, but he kind of gave up on that.
Yeah. So, yeah, when they kind of remember when he was supposed to be the trigger man on the power play briefly.
Yes. Oh, good times.
Very briefly that existed, but maybe, maybe now. Yeah. So I want to see him drop that in a game, try to catch some people off guard. I wonder if like news of that, because like that's a very respectable score at like an NHL All-Star game. 104.8 is like that's very fast.
I don't remember what the winner was last All-Star game, but that's got to be up there.
That is up there. Like in the days post Zdeno Chara and Shea Weber, when it's like back into like the mortal realm, as far as what these numbers are, that would be very respectable. So I wonder if that news gets around the NHL. Like, hey, this Morgan Geekie kid over in Seattle, like he hit that. And if like other people question like, well, how accurate's that radar gun, blah, 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 blah. Like, I wonder if that's a thing he'll chirp guys with later on in the season.
That'd be pretty fun. And I know Jeff Merrick, I think, quote tweeted the Kraken's one where he was just like, whoa. So the hockey world is taking notice. Yeah. And it's cool that they do this. I've got so many comments and stuff on Twitter saying that, like, why doesn't my team do this? My team should do a skills competition. I want to see how hard my guys can shoot. So great that the Kraken do this. So X was the breakaway challenge.
Yeah.
And so the guys get to bring out their craftiest moves on the breakaway here against, by the way, I should mention the goalies there were a couple e-bugs. So the emergency backups were in there, who are good goalies, by the way. I shot on them last week. Could not beat them. Very, very good. So for the breakaway challenge, I'll go over a few highlights. I thought the most creative move, and certainly the one that got the most traction online, was from Daniel Sprong. Mm-hmm. He goes and he brings the puck in, lies down, puts it in his glove, and does the little Superman spread along the ice, shakes it from one side to the other, like, am I going to the stick? Am I staying in the glove? And then basically just throws it into the net at the very end. It fooled the goalie, and I think it was probably the winner of the breakaway challenge.
Yep. He was sliding on his belly like a penguin. Given that look of what am I gonna do? We've seen that move back over to the stick and in the past there, doing his own unique kind of brand on it and just throwing the puck into the net.
Yep.
Does it count? Did it count?
No one said it didn't. I mean, there's a lot of.
I know rules kind of go out the window. Traditional shootout rules go out the window for events like this, but I still didn't know if just throwing the puck in was gonna count in this.
Yes, no, it did count. So
cool.
It did count. There were no judges this time though, really, like there were last year. Last year you had kind of the panel of judges.
Yeah.
So that was a little different this year. Let's see other highlights. Jordan Eberle did a cool behind the back shootout move where he brings the whole stick and everything behind the back. He scored on that one. Nice. Morgan Geekie did that little kind of where you pick up the puck like the Michigan, spin around and throw it on net. He was able to convert on that, which was pretty cool to see.
That is really impressive.
Vince Dunn kind of picked up the puck on his stick, like right at center, taking it in, did some puck juggling all the way to the net, and then tried to slap it out of the air. Didn't get everything on it, didn't go in. But nice try there from Vince Dunn. So that was the breakaway challenge. Fun to see the guys kind of show their stuff. Adam Larson, he participated. He tried. Didn't have a whole lot in his bag. He went between the legs on one.
Okay, that's not bad. Was one of them just coming in and just taking a clapper from like halfway down the zone?
No, that's what I wanted to see. And no, he did not attempt that. So unfortunately, he didn't do it. So, but it was a breakaway challenge. I posted some of the highlights on it too on all our social media, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok, which I'm experimenting with here. Yes. It's only our second TikTok that we put out, but it's at Emerald City Hockey. So go check that out if you are so inclined. I'm still figuring things out, so it's not going to be great yet. But the shootout highlights one is doing okay. I used a sound for the first time. I put some music behind it. Yeah, I'm still learning. Everybody.
So adventurous, RJ.
I know.
Adding sound to video. Who do you think you are?
I know. It was music too, so like so out of character for me. I don't know what music to pick.
Charlie Chaplin, just straight to you.
Yep. So those are the highlights for the breakaway challenge, and then the final event was the 3-on-3 competition. So you had the teams do a little 3-on-3 scrimmage
after back-to-back overtime games for them. Okay.
I know. Well, you'd be surprised to learn they didn't just circle back into their own end all the time.
They got a shot off.
Yes, they got a shot off. Can you believe it? It was a little different feel for the 3-on-3 in that one. I'm trying to think of highlights from the 3-on-3 here. Adam Larson, I will say Adam Larson took it the most seriously.
Okay.
Would you believe that?
Yeah,
he was skating up and down the ice. He was back checking. He was forechecking. He wanted to win that one.
Yeah, he doesn't know how not to win. You know what I mean? That's just what he does. He's a machine. I love it.
Yeah, and then one of the other odd moments was Jared McCann was almost, or no, wait. I'm trying to remember which way this went. Hang on.
He's got to pull up the TikTok, everybody.
Yes, I gotta pull up the TikTok and check this. Okay, so Jared McCann basically juggled a puck, like trying to knock it out of the air in the 3-on-3. He was coming in on basically a breakaway, and he kind of smacked at it at trying to knock it on net, but it missed the net, and it almost hit Jamie Alexiak behind the net.
Whoa.
So close. And McCann said afterward, because we asked him about it, like it was about, he's like, that was probably about an inch away from taking out his teeth, his brand new teeth. He said. So yeah, good thing for McCann that puck did not hit Jamie Alexiak, because he probably would have been a little scared there.
That would have been an interesting like post super skills competition conversation between the two there.
I know, like this is a skills comp, man.
This is supposed to be
and
fun.
Alexiak, afterward he circled right around the net and like just grabbed McCann and just gave him a like big old hug kind of thing. So they sorted it out in their way. I thought a fight was gonna start, but that would have been fun. But
I'm sure Hackstall would have been thrilled.
Yeah. No Hackstall sighting, actually. He was there at the last one, but I did not see him today.
Interesting.
Or not today, yesterday.
He's preparing for the coaching change in Vancouver.
Yes. I mean, yeah, he's got work to do. He's watching film. He's doing all that stuff.
I was going to say, you got to throw out that dusty old Bruce Boudreau book that's been hanging around since forever long. All the coaches have
brought you so much success.
Well, yeah, in the Kraken's case. I was just trying to make a joke of how often Bruce Boudreau gets recycled by teams.
Yes. Yeah.
Bring out the Rick Tocchet TNT book. Just everything he's talked about all season long on TNT. What's he going to try to bring in here? Should be interesting. But I'm glad that it sounds like another fun event. All the fans there were able to enjoy it. And then, just the bragging rights that this gives the Seattle Kraken fan base over all the other fan bases of like, hey, look at our cool hip happening team. Like they show up like Steve Buscemi with the skateboard and the backwards hat. Hey, what's up, kids? Like, but they're at least trying, right? No other teams try like that.
Yeah. And it takes a lot to put on an event like this too. It's not
Absolutely.
easy. And Morgan Geeky credited, like, he's like, it's got to be really tough to like get us all together and do this stuff, you know.
Right.
And so he credited to everyone who scheduled the event. So I'll just get to the end of it here. So on the 3-on-3 challenge, Team Donskoy was trailing at the very end 2-1, and with like basically as time expired, Brandon Tanev scored to tie the game, which would like decide the thing.
Right.
And so he didn't celebrate. Nobody else on the ice for Donskoy really celebrated because they're like, it's a 3-on-3, whatever. Adam Larson, hands in the air, like at the glass, full on celly. He didn't even score the goal. I don't think he even got an assist on it.
Doesn't matter.
He was loving it.
That's all that matters.
So they tied it. And afterwards, Morgan Geeky said, like, I don't even know how we won because I thought it was tied. So I don't know. But yeah, so the score is tied there. But Team Drieger takes the win, back-to-back wins for Driegs. And I'm telling you, he loved that trophy. He was like holding it up. The guys were passing it around, like holding it, kissing it. Like it was awesome. They were all about that trophy. Drieger even gave a speech afterward. You got to give your victory speech. He went with like this year's kind of, University of Georgia winning the college football championship. He went with their motivation strategy.
Okay.
He said, hey, a lot of people thought we couldn't do this. We had so many doubters. They thought Morgan Geeky won the hardest shot on a technicality last year. Come on. But we showed them we can do this. So that's where the motivation came from.
Oh, you'll absolutely love to hear it. I mean, that is so fantastic. Yep. All the haters out there. No way in heck they thought they could get that done. Just, you know. You just gotta,
personally, I knew his team last year. They were a paper tiger. There was no way they were going to be taken down by Team Donskoy this year, and I was wrong, just like all the doubters.
Yeah, just like when you said those same things about the Avs. I'm proud of you, RJ, bringing that out. You didn't have to, but you did.
Hey, you know what? As Nick Olchek has taught me over the past week, you got to be able to laugh at yourself.
You absolutely do need to be able to, and I think that's a very appropriate place to end this week's deep dive. Had a fantastic time talking about all things Kraken today. One more shout out to the awesome Queen Anne Beer Hall for sponsoring this podcast, sponsoring the post games, all that good stuff. Can't wait to get back up there again and hopefully do another watch party. That was so much fun. Still thinking about it a lot. All right, one more time, I'll remind everybody, Release the Fans with Gary tomorrow. Talk about the kind of the future of the Kraken, all that good stuff, in addition to hearing about Gary and his fan experience, how he came to become a hockey fan, wasn't one before the Seattle Kraken, hearing about that journey. Again, it's one of those cool things that we get to experience up here in Seattle and all that other fan bases don't get to, is some of those unique stories about finding the sport as this new team came in. It was a lot of fun to be able to hear that from him. So definitely recommend everybody goes and gives that a listen. And then, Vancouver on Wednesday, all looking forward to that game, all the other games this week. But until then, we'll see you all next time. Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons. Absurdly Sane, Alex, Andrew, Austin H, Austin W, Burnt Creme, Chris, Coop, Daryl, DJ Singletone, Duthin, Eli, Gaby, Gary, Harry Legionary, Jay, Joni, Joshua, Kepler,
Kitty B. Kraken, Kyle, Leanne, Maya, Michelle, Nunya, Paige, Paul, Rebecca, Sarah, Scott, Sean, Shoeshine, Striatic, Tasty Kobold, Team YMIAT, Tank Commander Ty, Tyler, and Wendy. Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.